Hi everyone, this is Viktor Naroditsky from One Market Data. Thank you for joining this OneTick live session. I am the head of regulatory solutions development, and I'll be talking today about our flagship regulatory solution, OneTick Surveillance. I will keep this short and sweet. We'll just cover a few points that seem to be most relevant to most of our clients. Um, and feel free to ask any questions in the chat. I'll respond to them as soon as I notice them or at the end. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. The first topic that I would like to cover is about out of the box and what it means in the context of what regulators expect and what you can expect from a vendor and from us in particular. Um, so there are two things that can be provided out of the box. Of course, everyone is looking for a complete coverage of regulations such as market abuse regulation in Europe or Dodd-Frank regulation in the States or other applicable regulations in other geographies. So one of the items that needs careful checking is that all of the relevant alerts are there. And uh, we have gone through the exercise of putting together a map between what market abuse regulation in particular requires and our alert list. So this is a MAR concordance page that we can make available to any prospect, where we go through the relevant regulation. In this case, it's Articles 7 and 8 and Annexes 1 and 2, and paragraph by paragraph, we describe how our alerts from our alert library maps to the regulation. I will keep saying alerts, but some people call them models, some people call them scenarios, but it doesn't change the meaning. This is just a particular type of manipulative behavior that needs to be monitored. So this MAR concordance will refer you back to the alerts library, and we have over 40 different out-of-the-box alerts that are configured. Something that we are special in compared to some of the competition is the ability to add any number of custom alerts to this list with minimal effort. Let's go back to the slides. So we talked about alerts and scenarios, and you would see the most common ones like spoofing, wash trades, quote stuffing, marking the close, fix manipulation, and so on. And for most clients to cover the regulation, you would just need about a dozen or so alerts, even though our library has way more alerts that may apply either to specific asset classes or to specific geographies. Something that should not be set out of the box is the alert parameters. And I have a quote from FCA's Market Watch here, where they're specific about firms not yielding to the temptation to just take out of the box alerts or to ask the vendor, okay, what do other clients like us are doing? In a sense, no one is exactly the same. Everyone's order flow is unique, and the regulators expect each firm to tune alert parameters so that it is appropriate to their flow. And by appropriate, it means that it will be picking up alerts or manipulative behaviors if they should arise. So in order to be able to easily tune parameters, we provide a dashboard where clients can tune parameters on their own, but normally we would do the first few iterations together with the customer, where we will be starting from some default values. We'll be changing them to the parameters that are appropriate to a specific flow. And just to give you a sense of what I'm talking about, we make a dashboard like this available to clients. The alerts appear on the left, and then when I select an alert, all of the parameters for this alert show up on the right. and we have a separate page that describes parameters for each alert, how changing each value will affect the surveillance behavior. And just to take an example, marking the close or fixed manipulation alerts, where at the top we have two parameters that let you specify things like how many trades should my flow be responsible for relative to the total number of trades on the market. In the case of marking the close, it could be in a configurable time period before the close, for example 5 minutes before the close. And you could say that if I am responsible for more than 75% of all of the trades that occur during that period, and the volume traded is also at least 75%, then I would like to raise an alert. And you could change alerts here to other values, and you could click rerun to see which alerts would rise with the new values. All right. And a couple more points about parameter tuning. Alerts in production are sacred in the sense that you cannot wipe out the history, or you cannot just rerun an alert and make all the alerts disappear and the new alerts appear. So the parameter tuning that I was showing you can be done only in the sandbox environment, in the UAT environment, while everything in production is not changeable, not modifiable. You can always easily find out which parameters were used to generate a specific set of alerts, and if you would like to do another run or another retro run in production, they will show up together with a different set of configuration parameters. And another thing to keep in mind is that it's important to understand how long it would take you to propagate updated parameters to production. In our hosted environment, we guarantee a 24-hour turnaround. The next topic is false positives. And our belief is that false positives is the true cost of surveillance, in the sense that surveillance is only as useful as the ability to identify real alerts and not to be drowned in the false positives. So the parameter tuning that we just talked about can only take you so far. And in many cases, you have to go beyond parameters to look at the specifics of your flow and configure custom rules that will help remove false positives. And that's an exercise that we routinely do with our customers. We start with a regular alert with tuned parameters. We observe that there are still many false positives, and the compliance users take the same steps to close them. So we talk to the compliance or to the business users, and we understand why the logic behind their actions, and then they help us add a custom rule that may be looking at some categorical values in the order flow to remove those false positives. And this logic is customer specific, so it will only be applied to the flow of the customer. Another Another way to help the false positives issue is alert ranking. We have an ability to add a ranker of customer's choice, and we provide a few out of the box options where we are assigning a score to each alert. And then when you investigate alerts, you have the option of sorting by the score, and so you can focus on the most important alerts first. I will never hide any of the alerts though, so all of the alerts that were raised require attention, but this lets you kind of look at the most important ones first. Another dimension of dealing with false positives is the ability to generate not just regular alerts that correspond to a single instance of manipulative behavior, but to look for meta alerts or pattern alerts. And I'll explain what I mean based on an example. We'll take a look at a spoofing alert, and I'll just switch to the graph where I can visualize what is going on here. The two lines are showing the best ask and the best bid, and the markers correspond to traders flow. So the red markers are orders to sell, the green ones are orders to buy, and in this case there was an order to sell placed at the best ask, then there were three orders to buy, the green triangles, placed at three different prices, slightly away from the market. The order to sell executed, another order to sell was placed and also executed, and the orders to buy were cancelled as shown by those circles. So this is a typical spoofing pattern where orders appear on one side of the market, in this case orders to buy. They're slightly away from the market, they create an impression of increased demand, the prices may move up just enough for the orders on the opposite side, in this case sell orders, to execute. And this is a particular instance, a particular alert, but on its own it may not be that significant, so we may want to look around at what was happening before and after, and I'll extend this view to about 10 minutes. And here we can observe that this similar behavior where orders are layered on one side and there is an execution on the opposite side occurred several times within those 10 minutes. And now it looks a lot more serious, so it looks like the intent to manipulate was really there. And we provide a meta alert that tells you that within a configurable amount of time, in this case within 10 minutes, there were more than 2 or more than 5 spoofing alerts. And you can look at the meta alerts first and then look at individual alerts. The next topic that's also in false positives category is the ability to take a look at statistics that can be generated by I keep saying trader, but when I say trader you can plug in whatever you feel is appropriate to a business, client, account, and so on. We provide a separate dashboard that collects statistics, and you can configure which statistics are important. For example, on this screen I'm looking at the volume traded by an account over the last 30 days, and we are highlighting days when the traded volume was more than 2.5 standard deviations away from the average. This is meant for you just as a research tool that you can use either to look at changes in traders' behavior that will help you investigate alerts, or to just look at this and see if there is something that should be flagged as an alert, and we can add a custom alert that corresponds to unusual trading behavior. Another dashboard that's also a free add-on to the Trade Surveillance suite is a visualizer for your orders and executions. And similar to the graph that we looked at in spoofing, we are showing you all of the activity, all of the orders and executions that we loaded from you, and you can focus on either a specific account or trader or client and just make sure that we loaded all of your order flow, or observe some unusual patterns that you would like to be flagged as alerts. And the final point I have here, and that goes beyond false positives, is custom alerts. Every business is unique. Some businesses are more complicated, some are simpler, but even the simplest business may want to have something that's custom to their order flow. And the ability to add a custom alert is important to almost all of our clients. What I mean by a custom alert is that in this dashboard that's used for alert investigation, we could plug in another alert and add custom logic that will be generating that alert, and you'd be able to investigate the alert using the same dashboards and the same workflow. All right, we are on to the asset classes. Many customers ask us about support for various asset classes, and our answer is that we are asset class agnostic, and much of the regulation in terms of the manipulative scenarios applies across asset classes. So just to show you what I mean here, we looked at an example from futures. We could be looking at examples from equities or options or fixed income or FX or any other asset class. And the visualization and the investigation would be the same. The parameters, however, would be different. And that's a key point, that you may want to have different alerts applied to different asset classes. You may want to parameterize them differently for different asset classes. And the dimensions along which many of our clients parameterize alerts are, first of all, by what we are monitoring, for example, trader, account, client, desk, or anything that makes sense to your order flow. Parameterization, alert parameters can vary also by the class of stock, for example, or class of instruments. Is it a liquid instrument or a liquid instrument? In the FX space, it could be, you could have a separate set of parameters for major currency pairs and other currency pairs, and so on. And something else that often comes up and that's important to understand is that parameters, most of the parameters are not fixed thresholds, but they actually depend on the market conditions. As we looked at the marking the close alerts, the two parameters that I mentioned, the percentage of volume and percentage of the number of trades, were relative to the market conditions at the time. And another common parameter is the price change, for example, for marking for momentum ignition or ramping alerts or spoofing alerts. And this is my last slide. And I want to talk about how you may choose a trade surveillance product. We find that it's very important for prospects to be able to try before they buy. So to see the dashboards just like the ones I showed you, populated with their own order flow, for example, based on a day of data, and to see alerts that we generated, to click on the buttons to make sure it's usable for the users who will be using it daily, to check the performance. And in our case, we're extremely scalable, so we have customers for whom we process billions of orders and executions per day. This exercise also lets you judge how long it takes a vendor to install a solution and to ingest your data into it. And we are very fast in terms of in terms of turnaround for a single asset class in a fixed format or in a CSV format that's easy for us to parse. The turnaround is as short as 2 weeks. And the final point is about pricing. It's important to be extremely transparent. We are very transparent. We price by the number of messages that we process per day, so by the number of orders and executions. And we provide tiers in pricing where, for example, if you are submitting fewer than 10,000 messages per day, it's a certain price level. If you go up to 100,000 messages, it's another level, than 1 million, 10 million, and so on, up to a billion messages. We offer complimentary POCs just like I described, so feel free to reach out and request a more detailed demo, or to sign up for a complimentary POC. Feel free to use this email. And if you have any questions, please use the chat window. Otherwise, we are done. Thanks, everyone.